guys, welcome to this week's video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lauren Conklin and I am a financial coach. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about why you need to forgive yourself for your financial mistakes and how to do it. Throughout our lives, we are taught a lot about forgiveness, whether it be through your religion or in schools or in your family. A lot of times we learn the importance of forgiving others and how it benefits relationships and benefits your own well-being. But one place that I feel like is a little underserved is that we don't really talk about the importance of self-forgiveness and how not only is it crucial, but it really can impact the rest of our lives. Forgiveness is important because it's part of the healing process. It lets us release the feelings of anger, shame, disappointment, sadness, guilt, resentment, etc. Forgiveness allows us to move on, to identify the feeling that we're having, give a voice to it, acknowledge it, and then move on. Studies show that self-forgiveness improves your well-being and your productivity. Two things that I think you'd agree with me are crucial to living a happy life and having a successful business. Research also shows that people who practice self-forgiveness have more positive attitudes and better relationships. So the same thing goes for self-forgiveness around money. The internal financial dialogue that we have going on and our confidence or lack of confidence when it comes to money affects us in every aspect of our life. So if we make one bad financial decision when it comes to business, for instance, maybe you invested in a business idea that just didn't work out, we have these feelings of guilt, shame, regret, right? And all of those stay with us and they impact us exponentially moving forward in all of our financial decisions. So that one bad decision or not so great financial decision has long-term ramifications on your money mindset. But everyone makes mistakes when it comes to money. Everyone. I know I do. All of the big financial experts out there, they've made money mistakes too. For some people, it may be because they're not financially as literate as they need to be. Or for others, it could be that they make a decision without recognizing the long-term effects that they will have on their finances. And then when they see it, it's too late. And then come the feelings of guilt and regret and shame and lack of confidence with your money, or even lower confidence than you had when it comes to your money. So what do we need to do? We need to feel those feelings, that is fine, air those feelings, live in those feelings, and then we need to move on. So how do we move on? Well, let's talk about that. The first thing we need to do is we need to look at what we've learned from this mistake. You've probably heard before that there's no such thing as failure because you're learning from all of your mistakes. Now that you're on the other side of it, you can't change it, right? The only thing you can do is learn from it and use it as a tool to ensure that you make better choices in the future. Instead of just keeping those lessons that you learn from a mistake in your brain, I really want you to write them in a journal. Okay, so go out, buy a cute little journal. It can say, inspire on the top, #goals, whatever it says, whatever makes you happy, and open it up. And I want you to use that because you want to have a running log of all of the things that you learn, because otherwise you may repeat those same mistakes. It's also really helpful to give to maybe another business owner starting out so they don't need to reinvent the wheel. So after you've documented the lessons that can be learned from that specific financial mistake, I want you to investigate, look into, uncover what your triggers are. What makes you make those kind of financial mistakes? Because I know most of us worry about history repeating itself. So if we can recognize what the triggers are, and then we can also determine some pattern interrupts to make sure that it doesn't happen again, well, then we are making our future safe from having that happen again. Just like emotional triggers are often based on past experiences or our childhood, the same is often true about our financial triggers. For example, one of my personal triggers that I've recognized over the last few years is self-doubt. When I feel self-doubt creep in, I revert back to a scarcity mindset. I did a lot of work to develop and grow my growth mindset. So sometimes I can feel myself revert back into a scarcity mindset, and that can result in poor business or financial decisions. I'll give you one example. So at one point a few years ago, I decided I was going to do an online course, which is not the bad decision. That's a great decision. I didn't feel that I had the Facebook ads experience or expertise, so I wanted to hire a strategist. Again, not the bad decision, good decision to invest in someone where that's their expertise. The problem is self-doubt crept in, and I thought to myself, well, what if this course launch doesn't go as good as I think it could? Or what if nobody buys my course? I don't want to lose a lot of money in this. So what I did was I chose a Facebook ad strategist that was more affordable, but very much inexperienced. And that backfired on me, obviously, right? Which is a whole nother topic. And it did backfire, and I ended up getting a lot of spam emails and spending a lot of money because you're still paying for those Facebook ads. And that was a financial mistake. But I learned from that. I learned many lessons from that. But one is I learned a trigger of self-doubt. The trigger, the reason I made that poor money decision to not invest properly in somebody that had the experience and the expertise that I really needed, was because I had self-doubt that crept in, okay? So I want you to recognize what your trigger is and then create some pattern interrupts to cut that trigger off and not let it send you down that same unhealthy path. So once you find that pattern interrupt or coping mechanism that works well for you, anytime that trigger, you feel that trigger starting, you can intercept it right then and there and put a stop to it. So for instance, one thing I do that's really helpful anytime I feel self-doubt creeping in, one pattern interrupt or way that I stop that trigger is I fact check myself, right? I make a list of all the successes I've had in my past, almost like my record of success, if you will. And I fact check myself to remember that how capable I am, how motivated I am, how successful I am. Another thing I do is I let go of comparison, okay? Because that's something that can lead to self-doubt and that scarcity mindset. I spend time with supportive people because that's really important, truly supportive in the way that I need to be supported, okay? I also remember that I'm my harshest critic, and I try to always let that be at the forefront of my thoughts or reminders. And lastly, I journal, okay? You don't have to get another journal. You don't need 50 journals. It can be the same one. But anytime I feel a trigger happening or I feel like I'm being triggered into maybe close to making a poor money mistake or back into that scarcity mindset, I use my journal and I write down all of my thoughts. And a lot of times what that helps me do is it helps me to recognize that this mental drama I have going on is a lot more blown out of proportion than what's going on in real life, okay? We tend to dramatize in our minds, so journaling helps. Now that you have recognized your triggers and incorporated some coping mechanisms or pattern interrupts, now it's time for you to really move your mindset to that place of forgiveness and move your mindset to that place of action because we need to move on. For instance, maybe you went to this great but expensive college when you were younger and you have school loans and you're chipping away at them, but it feels overwhelming and it's like this constant weight on your shoulders, okay? You already made the decision. You can't go back in time. But what you can do is you can mentally forgive yourself and mentally move on. And what that requires is taking action. You need to bring yourself to the mindset of, I am now going to rectify perhaps this money mistake that I made. And I'm not saying that an expensive college is necessarily a money mistake, but if you're viewing it that way, if that's the way you're internalizing it, then you now need to move on and take action to rectify it, okay? And that brings us to our next step, making a plan. So this can be baby steps. Anything really that you do will move the needle, even if it feels so small. If you are someone who maybe makes the financial mistake, or in the past you have, of giving too many discounts. For instance, I have a client who's a photographer and she gets a lot of referrals from friends and family and friends of friends and people she went to high school with. And so she gives a lot of discounts. But the problem with that is not only is she not charging her worth, but ultimately she's going to have to close her doors and not be able to help all these people and give them their beautiful, and I'm talking beautiful, family portraits and senior pictures, etc. So if you are in a similar situation where you give a lot of discounts or you feel like you're always kind of cutting down the price, maybe you can take the baby step of saying, for this month, so I'm currently in the month of August, but whenever you're watching this, the start of a month, or for the next 30 days, I will not be giving discounts. Now, you can't go back on your word if you've already told people they get a discount. But moving forward, any products you sell or clients you sign, no discount for 30 days. This might feel hard, and you might think, oh, yes, I said I was going to do that, but then my friend's cousin, sister, and asked me to, sell her something, and they just had a baby. There's all these excuses that come up, but I want you to remind yourself that this was a baby step for you so that you do not feel that you're making financial mistakes, so that you can keep your business going, so that you can help more people. And all you're doing is charging your full worth. You're not doing anything wrong. So that's one example. Another example would be if you have a lot of credit card debt for your business, then maybe you make the decision to consolidate your credit cards into a lower rate. That could be a baby step. Or maybe you decide that you're going to start paying off that debt using either the snowball or avalanche method or a combination of them. But you're making a decision and you're starting. You're taking action. So those past mistakes you cannot change. You already racked up that debt. There's nothing that you can do about that, but you can make decisions moving forward. And after you've made a plan, I want you lastly to give yourself some grace. Give yourself the same compassion, the same grace, the same support, the same understanding that you would for a friend. We are always our worst critic. We condemn ourselves. We don't give ourselves a second chance. Please treat yourself like you would your friend or even a stranger on the sidewalk. You would probably treat a little better. So that's all for today's video, but I want to kind of summarize what we talked about. As a reminder, we talked about why you need to forgive yourself when it comes to your financial mistakes, and it's because it leads to overall a better, healthier well-being and also more productivity. We need both of those things for a successful home, a successful life, a successful business. Then we talked about how to move on. So that was identifying the lessons that you learned and journaling about them, identifying your triggers and developing pattern interrupts or ways to cope with those triggers so that you don't make the same mistakes moving forward, shifting your mindset into forgiveness and then action, making a plan with baby steps to get you moving in that right direction, and then lastly, treating yourself with the same grace and forgiveness that you would a stranger or a good friend. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please click the like button below and make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you get all of my new content popping up into your subscription feed. See you next week.